we are back. So welcome once again from snowy, very, very cold Stockholm. Hope weather is better where you are. In today's session, getting started with GitHub Copilot and GitHub Copilot Chat, I have with me Jonas Härlin from GitHub and Johan Norberg from Microsoft, whom both of them are from Sweden, sitting here in Sweden. Stockholm. So welcome, guys. Welcome, Jonas, and welcome, Johan. It's a great pleasure to have you with us. So yeah, welcome. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you.
Good morning.
So yeah, let's get started. So in today's session, we'll be talking about GitHub Copilot, and it's the world's most widely adopted AI developer tool. So we have today the speakers. It's me, Jonas Härlin. My role is Cloud Solution Engineer. So it means that I'm an engineer working with a lot of our customers, and cloud means that I'm slightly more focused on the Microsoft cloud and questions related to that. And Johan?
Yeah, I work at Microsoft as a cloud solution architect. So I help our partners and customers to be successful at innovating and migrating to the cloud and using the cloud as efficiently as humanly possible. So that's my role. And I'm also like a developer since beginning of time. So I use GitHub Copilot more or less every day in my work. So I love this product.
Great.
Fantastic. What a combo for this session. So thank you once again, guys. I see already a few of you have put in the chat. You're from München or Bangladesh. We have someone from Sydney. Let us know where you're joining from. We love to see where you guys are tuning in from. But I'm going to put myself in the back now, so I completely hand the word over to you guys. But I'm here if needed. Just give me a shout. Okay. The session is going to be about 45 minutes-ish, and then we will have some questions in the end. But you, audience, please drop your questions. Drop your questions in the chat, and we will be answering them. Okay? See you soon.
Great. So let's get started. So we're talking about GitHub Copilot, and it's an interesting product because it's the interaction of these three companies doing their best work. So OpenAI, I think you heard of. This is the team that is really good at building these large language models and built ChatGPT. So they are responsible for building the AI model that we are using, to generative AI. Microsoft's piece is that they are hosting this model at scale all over the world. And then GitHub has built a product on top of this that will basically extend your developer capabilities. So this product is a combination of these three companies working together, and all of them thinking about like how to optimize this product. So that's how to think about this product. So it's all about really the DevX experience, or DevX. DevX is a kind of a buzzword lately, and it's related to developer experience, as mentioned. So developer experience is all about the systems, technologies, processes, and culture that influences the effectiveness of software development. So looking at all components of a developer ecosystem, from environment to workflows to tools. And we want to optimize that and make sure that the developer is running into as little friction as possible. Looking at, is the environment helping me to focus? Is this process eliminating ways in which I can make mistake? So that is the end goal we want to solve using generative AI. So the challenge we have is optimizing developer experience. The opportunity is accelerating workflows, and we're going to do this on a trusted, proven AI system platform, and that is actually GitHub, the GitHub platform, GitHub Enterprise. So how can you unlock these benefits with generative AI and optimizing the developer experience? And it's via the single integrated enterprise-ready platform. And we are basically focusing on three different things that we continue to invest in. That's collaboration, it's productivity or automation, and security. And we want to we want to think about like AI and generative AI, and think about like how can we extend the developers' way of working and making the developer experience better using these large language models. And the name we call this is Copilot. So Copilot, today we're going to talk about like Copilot auto completion and Copilot Chat. But you will see in the end, we will be discussing many more things. So basically, how do we cover the entire platform and extend the developer experience in all of these areas with generative AI? And that is the end goal. That's where we're going for. So you can see here, AI is the next frontier in terms of developer experience. So optimizing developer experience with AI. And the solution is, that's driving this change is Copilot. So using this, we can optimize developer happiness. We can increase developer productivity and accelerate software development. So GitHub Copilot was introduced as a technical preview 2.5 years ago in June 2021, and it was made generally available to developers a year later, and that was actually before ChatGPT, and it was open for businesses. Business started buying this product beginning of 2023, and so we have some long experience on the individual side. Both Johan and me were early adopters of this technology, trying it ourselves. And company-wide, different enterprises have been running it about a year. So we have a lot of experience, and we've been testing a lot of things, and we're starting to see data coming in on how this changes the developer flow, and we're starting to get a good understanding of that. So up until now, over 1.5 million developers have adopted Copilot, and they did a check, or they did a questionnaire in Stack Overflow in 2023, and they asked, and GitHub Copilot was actually the top choice among developers for using AI to improve your coding, and 55% of developers questioned said that they wanted to use GitHub Copilot. And the second place tool came in at around 13%. So we are a big market leader in this area. And one of the reasons is that we actually, we think, most of us that have been using the product think it's a great addition and will make development much quicker and simpler and better. We have asked developers that have been using the tool, and 87% of them feel that it's less mental. They have to spend less mental effort on repetitive tasks, and they can focus on, 74% say they can focus on more satisfying work. 73% say they are more in the flow. And the reason for this is that this AI generative model will help you complete the easy tasks, like the boilerplate code, and take that burden away from the developer. So instead of focusing on boilerplate, like a code that is very similar from one instance to another, the developer can work on a higher level and not have to get into those details that might not be as interesting. So I think that is why we see these great results. And so another great benefit is that when these developers, you guys, if you're a developer, or me or you, when we get to spend less time on writing tests, repetitive task, or repetitive code, or boilerplate code, or some of the things here we have on the slide, like learning Git commands, it's outside of what we will be doing today and demoing today, but it's still a part of this platform with capabilities, correcting syntax, finding vulnerabilities, searching documentation, debugging. When the developer gets to spend less time on that, they can spend more time on designing, brainstorming, collaboration, iterating, planning, and that leads to a more fulfilling work. Is what a lot of developers feel, that is using the product. So that is the benefits for the individual developers, but that of course leads to benefits for the organization as well. So we have also been able to measure like the effectiveness of organization that is using Copilot. And we've seen that companies using Copilot, they score really good or much better on these metrics that are usually used to measure like effectiveness of development organizations. So we see that these companies have a 55% higher release agility, meaning like from something is decided should be done until it's released in production. It's much quicker. Developer onboarding is another area where companies using Copilot can really speed up. And retention as well, like getting your developers to stay in the company and being satisfied with work has also gone up for those companies that have adopted Copilot. And that was what I wanted to start with sharing. And next up is we're going to do a demo, and Johan is going to do the demo. So I think, Erika, you can stop sharing my screen and switch over to Johan.
Thank you very much.
In action.
Yeah, I hope this the font size is good so you actually can see. Please let me know otherwise, and we can zoom up a bit. So the thing about using Copilot is that after a while, it's one of those things that you hardly noticed when you use it in your code, but you become super aware that you are not using it when it goes away. So recently, I've got an update to WebStorm that I usually use for an early access beta, and Copilot didn't work. And that was super frustrating, and that made me super aware that when I don't have this product, I miss it so much. But when I'm in the flow and working, I'm not really noticing it, how much it actually helped me. And this is like that kind of product. And I also think that the name Copilot is super smart, because that is actually what it is. It's something that helps you. It won't replace you, but it will help you, and you need to help it as well. So it's really much like working together. So I will show you today a couple of things, both using Copilot, which is more like auto-completion on steroids, and also Copilot Chat, which it's more like your rubber duck or your colleague that you can talk to and get advice from and help from. So let's start with a simple prompt to create something easy here. So let's say a prompt like this: create a class called user with properties for ID, name, email, and last login, and see what it does. So it suggests a couple of lines of code. And as you see, sometimes it expects that you have some white space, which is kind of natural, because that is what we do as developers. We tend to separate things with white space. So Copilot will try to mimic that. And then I can press Tab to accept the suggested solution to this problem. So that was like generating simple code. This could also been done probably by just starting to write code. So let's say we have a namespace, and it noticed the folder I'm in, and it's from the name of the file, which is called user.cs. It guesses that, oh, you probably want to create a user class, and it will probably have some of these names. And then I get a bunch of crap as well. So it's not always perfect. You will notice that, but it's often pretty good. So let's see what it's also expect. A constructor, that seems to make sense. It's not what I actually wanted here. I wanted another property for email. So let's see what it's guessing now. I'm lazy. So, but it's like helps you complete code, and the better you name things, the better the suggestion will be, which kind of makes sense actually. We can also use Copilot more in line in the code. So now I'm going to press Command I on Mac, and I think it's Control I on Windows. And I get a prompt right in line in the editor. So from here, I would like get some model validation for this code. So I will make a prompt like this. Make the name required and maximum number of characters should be 20. And we'll get suggestions. And I get this view where I see like a git diff, where I see my original code to the left and then the updated solution on the right. And then I can accept or discard that or generate new suggestions also. So now I got those attributes. I think the squiggly lines for the arrows here it just inserted a whole new class. That's why. That was not what I wanted. So let's try that again. So this is also something that you'll notice quite quickly, that some things that you not necessarily know, it helps very much. And some things are just like, this is not the correct one. I can try another one. Or just, if you didn't just remember what the attribute name was, just copy that part and add that. So this is usually actually how I work a lot, where like I get suggestions and get that from it. So let's do a step further. Let's open Copilot Chat and see how that can be helped. And I use this a lot for, like, imagine you have a colleague that you know have a lot of knowledge about something, and you want to get help from him or her. So how do you get the best help from this person? Well, you probably define the problem or the question in a way that makes sense, even if they don't have all the context or all the details. And that is exactly how I use Copilot Chat as well. So include details of the assumptions that's not obvious but required. So let's try something like this. I want to create an entity framework core, or set up entity framework core for this user class and the users table. What do I need to do? And can you give me the code needed for use this in my controllers? So now it will use this class as context. And it will help me understand how to set up EF Core. So what packages do I need? How do I create the app context? And also, how do I set up dependency injection, connection string? And then how do I actually get this from in a controller? So in this case, I might not just like insert the code and everything is fine, but I get the information that I need, and I can copy paste and use this as a learning tool or just help me work faster. And I think this is so incredibly useful for things that you kind of know what you want to do, but you don't know exactly the syntax or the best way to do it, or if you have forgotten what libraries or packages you want to use, or the syntax, or where things go. This is so useful for those kind of things. And when you have a prompt, if you're not satisfied with the result, which I believe you probably won't always be on the first try, as if, like the same way that if you explain something to a friend and they ask a follow-up question, you need to provide more context, or something that you just forgot to explain. You can just continue this discussion with Copilot. So let's say this, that I already have a ready-made SQL table, and I want to make sure that the property for last login date is called last underscore login instead. So we can map the property name on the class to a column name in the database, for instance. So I can get suggested on how to do that. So you can continuously work on this thing and discuss things with Copilot. Another such example that I used recently for myself is I will show you a file that this is a simplified version of a method that I wrote like 2015 or something, and never really touched it after that. And back then I used Google APIs to generate QR codes pretty easily. But there are problems with this code, and one of them is that it's very unnecessarily slow to make an HTTP request to Google just to generate a QR code. So Copilot to the rescue. So I did this. Sorry, there it is. And here you can choose. You can either continue this discussion in here, or you can press a plus to get like a clean slate and start over. So I said like this. I selected the code just to make sure that I understand that this is the thing that I need to work on. And just said, please refactor this code to avoid using Google APIs, and instead find a NuGet package that can generate a QR code to a PNG file and cache the output result. So in this case, it will actually give me a pretty good solution. There's a package called QR Coder that I can use. So it tells me to install that. It explains the reasoning why it suggested this code. And it generates that locally instead. And in this case, I think maybe I would prefer to use a HTTP output cache instead of a server memory cache. So this is also like a perfect opportunity to just continue this discussion. Like, please change this to use output cache instead. And it will magically change your code and use the output cache attribute to cache with a HTTP header and reformat the code. This is pretty good. And now comes the things that you will also notice quite quickly. When you know what you want to do almost, so you get this help. This is super useful to get this instead of finding the documentation on Stack Overflow and copy-pasting code. But when you look at the documentation, you know, this method, the get graphics, when you try to run it, you will see that your QR code will be humongously huge, because this size here that I expected to be the size of the entire QR code, this happens to be the size of each individual block in the QR code. So it is super big. And here's also something that you just can continue this discussion to correct things that you discovered while working, more than that you knew that you need to tell it before. So I can explain that this is the size of the entire QR code. Please fix this. And then it fix that and look up in the documentation, I guess, somehow to get the size correctly. So it found, no, this is, here it is. That it can calculate how many blocks each thing was. This, I don't think this is actually the correct sign. It did it better yesterday. This is also like demoing Copilot. It's always exciting because you never really know what you're going to get this time. So be aware. But yesterday worked perfectly, and it was like, wow, this is really impressive. But you need to discuss this back and forth to improve what it suggests and get parts of it, or maybe all of it. And so it's like a discussion more than give me the solution, period.
Yeah, you can't always trust the results 100%, no. Right? So it's the same with safety and such as well. Make sure to run all the safety tools. It's great to get some code generated, but don't trust it 100%. Please verify. It's a Copilot, and you are still in control and responsible for your code.
Yes, exactly. And that is why, like, You often hear that, oh, there will be no developers in 2 years. I don't believe that, at least not yet. I think the role of the developer will certainly change. I think we might focus more on explaining the problem and getting Copilot to generate parts of it, like puzzle pieces. But it's up to you to actually use these puzzle pieces to make the whole picture and make it work correctly. So it's much more like a power saw than actually a robot that built the house for you. So let's look at another example. And we'll switch to React in this case. And a combination of things. So I will use Command I here again to get the inline chat, and I will ask it to create a component that fetches JSON data from an external API, and also to render that data with a property with name and score and render it in a table. So quite a complex task for like just a prompt that do this, then do this, then do this. So it just has one thing. And this looks pretty good, I think. It even made a TypeScript type. And it generated some code which looks kind of good. Good enough to get started with in, like, how long did that take? 5 seconds, 6 seconds. So that's pretty good. And here's where chat can enter the room again and help you. Because this is something in my early React days, this is code that I would have written for sure, and would have been pretty happy with it. But there are some drawbacks of this. So like 1 or 2 months ago, there was a heated discussion on Twitter or X that, oh, use effect. That is super lame. You should never use that. That is bad. You know, like Twitter always 100% good or 100% bad. And this was suddenly 100% bad. So I wanted to see what Copilot had to say about this. So I asked Copilot that people are saying that fetching data inside use effect is bad, and they should use other libraries like React Query or SWR. So I asked it, can you help me fix this to change that? And it gives me first an example that, oh, it's maybe not that bad, but here's the reason why it might be bad. So simplify things. And I can get the instruction how to fix this. So install React Query, and this is how the code will look instead. So I could have like replaced this code with the new code. So it might look a little cleaner. But you know, here, now it's lost my type. So it's, again, it's not always perfect, but it's almost always an improvement over writing it yourself from scratch. But you need to use your skills, and you need to use the skills of Copilot, and you need to combine those things. Let's take another small example. Now I will show how. Let's close this file for now. Naming things is super good for Copilot, as well as it's super good for your coworkers and even yourself in 1 month's time. So let's say that I can let you guess, actually. Guess what I intend to do now. Like, it could be literally anything. And let's say I write this. What kind of regex do you expect me to write? Was it obvious that I wanted to write a email regex? So the better naming I give it, the better suggestion I will get back. So it helps a lot. And regarding regex, you can do this as well. So let's select this and Command I and /explain. Now I can get this piece of code This could be any code, but I think it's super useful for regex, because 5 minutes after you finish a regex, you have forgotten what it actually does. So explain, and I can get an explanation of this regex, and it breaks it down and show each individual part of the regex, what it actually does. And this is also something I find so useful instead of starting to Google things. So naming things, very important. We can try another example with regards to context. Let's say I create a function, calculate, total amount. Okay, that was interesting. Let's see how we can improve this by giving it more context. Okay, pretty good. Values sounds kind of reasonable, but let's see if we can improve this. So I will delete this code and I will open another file. So here's the definition for this transaction class that I have. And it has an ID and an amount. Just by having this file open, I can improve this. I need to import it first, of course. Transaction from transaction. Good, thank you. So let's see if we can improve this now. Now it figured out. It was exactly the same code as before, but just by importing this file and having it open in the editor, it figured out that my property wasn't actually called value. It was called amount, and it figured that out. So having files related to what you are currently working on is also something that is super useful to give Copilot more context of what you're doing and help it on the way. So that's that. Here's another thing that you can do with Copilot that I think Jonas mentioned as well. Just by selecting some piece of code and pressing Command-I or Control-I to get the Copilot. You can do this in the chat windows as well. Writing /tests. You can have Copilot generate unit tests for you. It's pretty cool. And in this case, maybe it didn't really make sense to do this in this file. So I maybe use chat instead here and start a new context. Sorry, what happened?
Maybe it needs context. Maybe you need to select the code on the right-hand side. I don't know if it picks it up.
Kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Generate test for selected
function. Not sure when.
Well, sorry, that didn't work. What I expected to happen is that it would write an explanation of tests, and since it figured out that I'm using React, it would suggest to use the jest often. If I wanted to use like React testing library, just having an empty file where I import React testing library could make it figure that out and make tests comply to React testing library instead. But it's annoying that didn't work because it's such a cool feature, I think. There's one more time.
Yeah.
Here we go. So in this case, I said, like import the testing library, create a file, and then it spits out some tests. Some of them will be relevant, some of them might not be. So again, it's up to you to see this as a helpful start where you need to make sure that it's what you actually want. But it's just setting this up is quite nice and getting the first tests. And the last thing I want to show you is something that Copilot works in Visual Studio Code, in JetBrains IDEs, and also NeoVim. This feature that I'm showing you now is, as far as I'm aware, only available in VS Code at the moment. So you can use at workspace, and here you can ask questions about your current project. So usually Copilot would just look at the files you have open and like a small amount of code to make a good prompt. But at workspace, it can first query or search in your code workspace and then create a query from the results. So in AI terms, this is usually called RAG. So you first do an indexed search and then you create a prompt from that. And here you can also do things like this, like new, and then you can ask it to generate a new project and with some files included. So let's, oh, what happened now? Oh, strange. So something like this. Can you still see my screen, Jonas?
No, screen is gone.
Screen is gone. Let's try again. Good thing that I asked and just started, continue talking, and no one sees what I'm doing. Erika, can you help us with showing my screen again? Thank you very much. It's like having a streaming Copilot with you.
Yeah.
So imagine this prompt, workspace new, and then I can tell Copilot to create some folder structure and some boilerplate code for me. So in this case, create a HTML website with an index file and a context page, and I kind of display what the basic layout that I want it to be. And now it will create, or rather it will suggest a folder structure with files. If I press create workspace here, it will generate the file to disk, but we can just look at them to preview. And we'll see that it's actually pretty good to just get started with things. So this could be a React site, it could be a whatever you want site, basically, but it sets things up. So here's the header I asked for with the name title Copilot. Here's the footer that I asked for with the text and just a placeholder for the content. And the CSS, hopefully we will see that the header has a dark background and white text that I asked for. Header, blue, white. And then if I press workspace here, it will just tell me where to put these files, and I will make them for you. So I think that's pretty cool, and I guess this is like the first version of this, and it'd be cool to imagine what it can do next. Because right now it seems to create the folder structure, but I would sometimes like more that it used some of the templating things that's usually available, like npx create React app, or .NET new and a .NET project type, or create a React native Expo app. So it can do that now, but it will generate the file. It will not run the script that generates those files. So that might be an improvement over time. So final thoughts about Copilot and Copilot Chat. The more you use this, the more you will discover that, like, holy shit, could it do that? And that will also, I think, at least for me, it triggered more ideas of how can I use this. So the more you use it, the more you will discover what it actually can do. But because I can guarantee you the first time you start using this, you won't challenge it enough to make it so you can see what it actually can do. So just try new things, and just for the fun of it, actually, it's like I wonder if it can do this, and give it a juicy challenge and include details of what you want it to do and see what happens. That is my advice to you. So that's kind of it for demo. Let's go back to the slides.
Okay, let me share my screen again.
Yeah.
And switch back to PowerPoint and run here. Great. So we saw some great demos from Johan, and usually actually when talking to our customers, explaining the value and getting developers excited is usually not that hard. It is actually a mind-blowing product. A lot of people feel when starting to using it, starting to play with it. Still, the adoption blocker is usually on the legal side. Like this is something completely new that the companies normally don't use. So there we see the hesitation. So that's why we focused a lot, both since we made our first version and even before that, on focusing on like safety, both making sure that this is as safe, trustworthy, and reliable as possible, and also documenting that to make sure that it's fully understood by everybody, like how we're thinking about security. So we need to focus on privacy, making sure to handle the data that flows up and down. Security, making sure that the Azure infrastructure and the encryption is all set up so nobody can steal code going up or down. And also copyright, making sure that thinking about this intellectual property issues and making sure that we don't provide code that can have intellectual property rights on them. So that has been, excuse me, a focus for us since release 1. And yes.
One question that I get asked a lot, Jonas, and maybe you can clarify this, is that people are afraid that Copilot is using your code for training.
Yeah, and that is not the case. So what will happen is that, yeah, so let's just end there. So we will never use your code for training. Like the code that we see in terms of helping, like Johan in this example, it will be used to generate a suggestion, but it will never be saved. It won't be used by us or used to improve the model. So yes, let's just leave it at that. So that is one of the most important things.
Yeah, and it's also true for all of the SKUs of the license. So even the individual SKU, the business SKU and the enterprise SKU, this is true for all of them.
Yes, correct. It is. And also there are a couple of other safety things we do. So the code generation that we will get, it's basically, you can think of it as an average of the code that has been seen by the model in training, and that code is not always perfect. So actually what happens is after we generate a suggestion, we will take a look at that suggestion and we will filter it in a couple of ways. For one thing, we will make sure that there's no safety issues. Let's say you're asking for code, and the code you're asking for and that we provide could result in SQL injection. We have filters on the way going down to make sure that we don't suggest code that could lead to some of these obvious security issues. We also have filters for what is called reliable AI. That is a Microsoft term, making sure that we don't give suggestions that could be harmful or like bias or something else. Making sure we don't have any personal information going up and down. So those are a couple of filters we have as well. But that's everything I'll talk about in terms of safety. There is a lot of information on this, and we have provided a lot of information. And there's something called GitHub Copilot Trust Center. So if you want to dig into the details there and see all the things we do to make enterprises feel secure in using this product, you can go up to our Trust Center. But now let's switch and talk about something interesting, that is the future. So most of what Johan showed in the demo was things that you could do in the IDE as a developer, sitting in Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code. And you can see on the lower left side that we support Visual Studio Code, JetBrains, and NeoVim. Those are the IDEs where we currently have functionality. But I talked about in the beginning of this Copilot is more of an umbrella name. Now we're starting to move into having this as an umbrella name for all the AI infused support that a developer can have all over the software development life cycle. So, so that means that we're just moving away from having 100% focus on writing code in the IDE to completing with a couple of different more things, and that it will focus on the platform itself and basically enhance GitHub and the GitHub functionality you have in the user interface of github.com or your GitHub enterprise server. So that is the future, and let's actually switch to this slide here. So in terms of like where are we right now and what is the next wave? I think this slide explains it pretty well. We talked about a lot of the things on the left-hand side, and that is called Copilot Business. We didn't talk about like CLI assistance. So that is things to help you. Let's say you need to write a complex CLI command, either just in Shell or for Git or for GitHub. So let's say I need to see the last 5 commits from Johan in into one repository. That would take me like half an hour to Google and find, I think. But basically, you can use Copilot and basically describe what you want to do, just as Johan showed the code. You can describe the command you want to have, and it will convert it to a shell command. So we talked about most things on the left-hand side. The next wave is Copilot Enterprise, that will start coming out now next month in February. And there we will see more of the things related to the platform. So Copilot Business, up until now, you have been able to have your code anywhere. I think most of the instances for that Johan showed, it didn't really matter if his code was stored in GitHub or it was stored in Azure DevOps or even only local files. But now in the next wave, we will be able to do more if you have your projects in GitHub. And looking at the first couple of things here, basically what we will be able to do is you will be able to have a discussion with your code base. And in order to do that, we need to like basically index. Johan hinted at this, and we have some capabilities on doing this on the client as well. But for us to be able to do this really well, we need to index all of your code base, and then you can basically have a dialogue with your code base. So this is going to be super powerful, I think, for new developers coming into large projects, or even developers sitting in existing large projects that is hard to keep all the projects in your head. Like so being able to ask things like, where do we handle login? How is our logging handled? Login is one example. Logging is another example. So having those discussions is going to be super valuable. Also, being able to have a discussion with documentation. So me and Johan, we looked at this yesterday. We basically, you're able to index like the React documentation and start the discussion with the documentation. Last, pull request summaries, basically being able to generate the pull request after writing all the code. You can basically ask Copilot, please help me in generating a pull request summary for this. And basically the AI system will take a look at all your changes and describe them in a very precise way. The flip side of this is for code review skills. Basically, let's say Johan sends a pull request to me, and he uses these tools to generate a good summary and describe what he has done. Next part of this is me trying to understand Johan's pull requests. So being able to, for me, to ask questions on this pull requests. So why do you think you did this? Could this be changed in some other way? And basically me using AI assistance to verify the code that somebody else has written. Last one is fine-tune models. That's a lot of excitement on fine-tuning models. So you know that the large language model that is a base for all the suggestions you saw today, it's trained on most of open source code that is out there. It's trained by OpenAI, so we don't have the full details, but it's not fully trained on things like COBOL. We know a lot of banks are using COBOL. There's not a lot of COBOL representation in the open source. So our model isn't trained a lot on those corner languages, these small, narrow languages. So for a lot of enterprises that are working with code bases that are very special, differentiated, maybe in languages that we haven't trained a lot on, for them it's going to make a lot of sense to be able to fine-tune the model and get a special built model, including their code base, representing their code base. And that is actually the last slide that I wanted to show. And we have 5 minutes now for questions. So Erika, how do you want to handle this?
First, I come back here and say thank you. Thank you, guys. Can you hear me, see me?
Yeah, for sure.
We can.
Yes, great. My browser extremely slow, so I think I need to refresh and update. But let's try to do this. First question came. Let's see if I can bring this up. We can remove. Yeah. So do you see the question? Can you see?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how many languages does it support? Terraform, HCL, Ansible, YML. This was from.
So that's a complex question to answer. So it will perform better the more training you have seen. It will perform even for COBOL. It will. So I even experimented with making up my own language, just a made-up language with some syntax, and it was able to give me suggestions in that made-up language. So basically, you can say. So also Johan, in doing his demonstrations today, he wrote his comments in English. He could have written them in Swedish or Spanish or whatever, and it would have generated the same code. So it's not like we have picked a couple of languages. Basically, we have trained the model on all languages we have access to. And based on that, the model is able to generalize and even understand languages that is never seen before. So we will do better on the common languages and less good on stuff like COBOL or my made-up language.
Yeah. So the more open source project there is in a language, the better it will be perform. And the more questions about it on Stack Overflow, for instance, the better it will perform. And actually, talking about Stack Overflow, one interesting stat that you mentioned on GitHub Universe conference last year was that if you ask your question in a polite and friendly manner, you will statistically get better results, which I found fascinating and also quite logical. Because if you look at Stack Overflow, what is the best way to get a good answer from someone? I mean, it's not calling someone with all the other people stupid and being rude to them, but actually being nice and polite to them will probably give you a better answer. And since the models are trained on that kind of data, you will probably get better results as well. So I think that's kind of fascinating.
Thank you. Now let's move on to the next question from David. How stable are the answers? I think you kind of touched on this actually throughout your demo, but we can.
Yeah. I think the stableness is unstable. So for some prompts, I get almost exactly the word by word, exactly the same example. But then there are others like today's. I've done this a couple of times, and this was the first time I get a completely different answer for some of the things. So it's kind of random, but I would say more often than not, you will get the same answer for the same prompt, but it's no guarantee.
And the idea, I guess, is that it shouldn't really matter as long as we provide a good answer. It's basically up to the developer then to look at the reply and validate it. So you might get different answers, and it might even be a good thing, like seeing two different variations. And you also saw that Johan had this button, regenerate answer. It will basically take this exact same question and give you a different answer. So it's true that it's not super stable, but it's not a product that you should that needs to be super stable. It can give different results.
I actually think I've been more annoyed when I do get the same answer for kind of the same prompt, because I wanted a different answer. And usually, like, providing more details could help a lot. Like, let's say the QR code example that I used. It would often suggest a solution that would have worked perfectly fine in .NET Framework, the old one where all the packages existed, but in .NET Core, some of those aren't there. So I needed to be super specific about I'm using .NET Core 8, so system.drawing is not available. So sometimes you need to hint things as well. And sometimes it's like really stubborn to suggest a solution that I didn't want. So it goes both ways, this stableness, I think.
Thank you. Next question coming from, so slow. Oh my God. Now you see the question, right? No? Yes, do you?
I did see it, but no, yeah.
So, from Rohit.
If you want to refer to the first file, not sure if you can like specifically say use this file, or maybe it depends. I think in chat you will see a reference of the files that it's going to use, which is often the open files you have. And I also think, and maybe you can correct me here, Jonas, that it will look at the active tab and the closeness to that tab and the closeness to the cursor will be prioritized over files that are like not even visible on the screen, but still open.
Yeah, so there's a difference between chat and what we call auto-completion. And for auto-completion, just type in code and get suggestions. It will look at your current context, like your current file, like above and below. And it will also look at neighboring tabs. And it's not like what tab is the closest one laid out in the IDE, but it will actually look for relevant things. So let's say you're writing a method and you have a test method that is basically testing the method you're writing. Then it will know to pick up that one. So we'll try to find the code that is relevant for your code base or your example right now and pick that up. So that is in the auto-completion. In terms of chat, you are in more control. So you saw that Johan typed at workspace. It basically means please use the entire workspace. You can also do bracket and start typing the file name, and you can basically reference one file. So in chat, you are more in control, and you can specify exactly what should be referenced. In auto-completion, it's more automatic, and we will try to we spend a lot of time on this, and this is one of the ways we try to optimize the product and make it better and better over time. Like, what is the relevant pieces of your code that needs to go into the prompt to give you a good suggestion? That is one of the main things we focus on.
Thank you. And then we have a follow-up question from Rohit again. And hopefully it's visible now. Yes.
Not super clear on how to answer this one. So usually if you don't like the replies in chat, it's easy to explain why you don't like it and ask for an update. In the auto-completion, you will also get suggestions, and you can also hit like, give me next suggestion. I don't like this one. Give me next suggestion. And there you can also control a bit in the command. So if you're getting like else question mark and you want to use question mark, you could start explaining that in the comment and probably the right thing will be generated.
Yeah, I'd also say that you can cycle through different suggestions, but I would probably just be more precise in what I want in my prompt. So if this is like I prefer the question mark operation over if else or a switch statement or whatever, I would include that in the prompt to like a hint. This is what I want.
Thank you. Now let's move on to Jack's question. What code is being used for training, if not those of users?
So the large language model is trained by OpenAI, and I think you see in ChatGPT. So basically, we use a small variation of what is used by ChatGPT 4.0. And as part of it, so again, GitHub is not responsible for the training. It's done by OpenAI. It will train on most of the internet, and it will also train on most of the code that is out there in the public domain. So all the code that OpenAI could get access to that are open, that they feel they can use for training, they have used for training. What is not being used is, as you're using Copilot, we don't basically take your data, and that is basically private. Usually your code is super secure, like behind a firewall. If you have an open source project that you're working on, that it's highly likely, if it's a common project and an open project, that it has been used as part of training. But generating new suggestions will not modify the model.
Thank you. And the next question from MSA regarding student discounts or student offers. Do you have anything?
I don't know. I think I saw somebody else answer. I don't know of a student offering. I know that as a paid offering, we have like Copilot for individuals. So for sure, if you're willing to pay $10 per month, that is an option. Somebody else mentioned in the chat that they had some other deal. Also, if you're a maintainer of a large project, we will give you Copilot for free.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know of this, but it seems like GitHub Student Pack sounds like a great thing to check out.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. And now let's move on to a language question. Does it support other languages other than English?
Yeah, for sure. You can write your comments in Spanish or Swedish or whatever language.
And the result will also mimic what you have already written. So if you have written or named things, or like the content in your site is primarily in Spanish, it will try to mimic and suggest things that also are in Spanish. And this also, I have a project where I mix Swedish and English localization in the same file. And it's also figured out that, okay, now you're in the Swedish context of this file, and it would suggest texts in Swedish. So it's pretty good at that, actually.
Fantastic. We have another question from Mohas.
That kind of already got answered from the last question,
yeah,
I think.
Agreed. Yeah. So it's an up. It's close to ChatGPT 4.0. So you could. So we will try to filter it out. If you go back a couple of months ago, we were not always great in filtering out. So you could get a dialogue started with Copilot, and I could ask it stuff like, what is the large car manufacturer in Göteborg, my home city? And we will say like Volvo. And I could ask it like, what are the biggest cars that Volvo is selling? So it has a complete knowledge of the world, just like ChatGPT. But we try to limit it and only allow Copilot to discuss code.
Thank you. And then we have one last question from Kurram, which is to you, Bill, I believe, Jonas.
Same thing. Excuse me. Same thing there. One of the things we're looking at is and that is actually something that is part of advanced security. That is, how can we, when finding security issues, how can we help the developer in fixing those security issues? So for sure, if you have a piece of code, you can use Copilot Chat to discuss, like, say, can you explain if this code is insecure, and could you give me an update? And it will do a really good job on that often. And again, it will give you some hint, but treat it as any other colleague. You are responsible. You need to trust the reply and treat it as an indication. Don't treat it as a 100% truth. What we're coming out with soon is additions to our security product, Advanced Security. So when we detect an issue, we will also suggest a fix for that issue. So you have written this in an unsecure way. This is a secure way to write this. So yes.
Thank you. And yeah, we have now run out of time. So this was our last question. But thank you for a wonderful session, indeed. Thank you, Rohit, as well, for sending this.
All caps as well. That's major. Yeah. Thank you, Rohit.
That means double brownie points.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. And obviously, this session is going to be available on demand for you. So you can always go back and rewatch it. So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, both of you, Jonas and Johan, and everybody joining for today. Thank you for asking your questions. It's been a wonderful session. So with that said, I would like to wish you, all of you, a wonderful day or evening ahead, wherever you are. I've seen from the chat in the beginning that we literally touched global, from Sydney to Sweden and in between. We have had the viewers everywhere, which is just fantastic. So I hope to see you here again, and have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.